Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As well, to tell you, bienvenido to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. You know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. On a beautiful February 21st, 2019, Big C will be calling in shortly. So much is happening in the sports universe. I know there's so many people that have these questions about who are the best athletes in the country, who are the best athletes for whatever team. Whether it's men's sports or women's sports, people still want to have debates over who the best athletes are. And I love going back to the days of when television would show us the bowl games, and we had the big bowl games where we would have the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. But now there's so many bowls and so many teams that are not really qualified or worthy of being in the top four. They all will lay their claim. We saw that with University of Central Florida, where they were in the game where they were beaten up pretty good by LSU, especially dominated in the lines. And then Washington, a good Rose Bowl comeback, but they fell short against Ohio State. Definitely Ohio State can argue to be among the top teams in the country. We've seen that before. And then you have Alabama, which was wire to wire the number one team in the country by many bodies, by most people's standards, but only up against a team in Clemson that they get exposed. So does it mean that Alabama is not the best team and that Clemson is? Not necessarily. All it means is that Clemson played a great game that night at Levi Stadium in San Francisco, Santa Clara, and they got a big win over Alabama. So now people are saying, well, Clemson's the number one team. Well, that happens in all sports. Let's look at what happens in basketball. On the Lakers, they had a big win against the Boston Celtics in Boston. Rajon Rondo hit the last second shot. And people were thinking, well, the Lakers are on their way. And then they followed that up with a letdown loss. So who are the Lakers? If we go back even last year, I remember the game with New Orleans Pelicans when Boogie Cousins went down, and they ended up losing, but they had beaten the Portland Trailblazers. They swept them 4-0. But then at the same time, when Boogie went down, everybody said, well, maybe this is not a team that can last very long. As we also look at what happens with the Houston Rockets last year. They had a 3-2 lead over the Golden State Warriors. And there are many people who thought, well, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, that Houston would actually win that championship. Not necessarily so. Because if you look at what he's done, he's never played in a championship game. So you can't say that he's the reason that they would have gotten there. And now we look at what happened last night. We'll get Big C on the line in just a minute. In one of the biggest games in the college basketball universe, we had so many people saying that this is a must-see game with Duke, ranked number one in the country, and then North Carolina coming in ranked number 8 in the country. And Big C had just said, why is Duke number one? Because they lost the game to Gonzaga. Why wouldn't Gonzaga be number one instead? Well, now, Big C, I guess your thoughts have come to fruition. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we were bewildered by the lack of competition last night in that epic, supposed to be game in Chapel Hill. But, this is what all the preponderance hype up, Charlton. They build something up bigger than what it should be because of television these days. And all of a sudden, early into the game, 36 seconds in, it was all over.
Yeah, it's a shame. And I know this section is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So you think about one player making that much of a difference on a Coach Krzyzewski team. Just talking about NBA, how people can say who the better teams are. We had for the New Orleans Pelicans, Boogie Cousins got it hurt, and then they were not the same team. Also, Chris Paul, last year, they were up on Golden State. He got hurt, and people said, well, that's what cost them a championship. No, not necessarily. If you look at what happened with Duke last night, is Zion Williams that much of a player for that team? What happened to all the other guys that are supposedly first-round can't-miss NBA draft picks, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he is an impactful player. When you look at the dominance that he brings to the center of the key, Charlton, during a basketball game, it's unparalleled to have an athlete his size and his ability in today's game. When you think about how North Carolina dominated the game in the paint last night after Zion Williams left the game, Charlton, they scored 60 points in the paint.
Yeah.
Duke had not given up 60 points in the paint all year long, Charlton.
Yeah.
It takes normally 2 games for a team to get that many points in the paint.
Yeah.
So without that presence in the middle, you know, basketball has become a 3-point shooting game.
Yeah.
But it still has to go inside, Charlton, to make a difference in the game. It's like in football where you have to have a running game at some point to offset what a defense does.
Yeah.
When Zion Williams left the game, Charlton, there was no answer for the North Carolina big men.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they were led by 30 points by their center last night. So that was the difference in the game. They didn't have Zion Williams to combat it. But I look at all the hoopla, Charlton, over this shoe blowing out last night. It was almost like the shoe was the game and not the game.
Yeah.
You know, all the back talk about Nike and this shoe going out and should Zion Williams sue Nike because the shoe blew out. Charlton, this is not the first time in a game that a tennis shoe has blown out.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Nike shoes have gone out before. If you go back to 2014,
Yeah.
the San Antonio Spurs and the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah.
Manu Ginobili, who was a guard, nowhere near the size of a Zion Williams, blew out a shoe doing the same thing, Charlton.
Yeah.
You have to understand that a shoe is just a material of rubber, thread, and leather.
Yeah.
There's going to be structural weaknesses. I don't care what you do. I mean, it would be like every auto owner in America suing a tire company when they have a blowout on their car, Charlton.
Right.
So when you think about this nonsense of Nike being sued, Nike just looked at this. They'll make another publicity move out of this. You'll see Mike Krzyzewski on a commercial within the next 2 weeks, Charlton, you know, advocating for Nike because Nike's not going to stand still with this. They're going to use this as a promotional gadget, just as they did with Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
They took the negative and made a positive out of it, Charlton. They'll take the negative out of this shoe and make a positive out of it. Because this one particular shoe, the PG-12, Charlton, is the most used shoe in the NBA. So you think about Nike's going to recall all the shoes they made. I mean, everybody in the media is out there trying to build a story, a narrative.
Yeah.
This was just a simple shoe that blew out, Charlton. I don't know if it made the difference in the game, but it was just a shoe.
Yeah.
It wasn't a catastrophic event, Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's funny when you say that people are upset at Nike. You can look at car tires, like you said, they can have a blowout. And even if people have a car, you can buy a lemon. It doesn't mean that the manufacturer makes all bad cars. Their recalls on food. That doesn't mean we stop eating food or that food companies stop preparing food. Big C, I think that's crazy. But I want to get your thoughts, too. You know how we sometimes make fun of the one and done, and we think that players, you know, should get paid. Now, I know that he has probably an insurance policy against injury. Because
he has a $10 million insurance policy, Charlton, if he falls out of the top 15 in the draft.
Yeah, so that's chump change for what he can make if he can become, you know, the next LeBron James in a sense. But does this...
Well, if he's the number 1 overall pick in the draft, Charlton, he's guaranteed $44 million.
Yeah.
That's what he would get over a 4-year contract, $44 million.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference between the two, $10 million and 44.
Yeah, that's a lot of cheese there, Big C. But if you look at the other players all around the country that, you know, everybody has somebody who's considered a guy that can't miss on their team, especially for the bigger programs. So when we think about the one and done, you think of I think of a statement that Calipari made with Kentucky one time. He wants his players to be one and done because he wants them to go out and make money. Everybody's trying to make money on Zion except for Zion. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, everybody is making money on Zion except for Zion. You look at Krzyzewski. He has a several $1 million shoe deal with Nike, Charlton, to have his players wear Nikes. Zion doesn't have the ability to go on the court, Charlton, with a pair of Reeboks, with a pair of Adidas, with a pair of Pumas, New Balance, or whatever, Under Armour shoes.
Yeah.
He can only wear Nike by playing for Duke.
Yeah.
So when you think about just overall, Charlton, you think about the amount of money that was spent on that game, Charlton, last night with people buying tickets.
Yeah.
and no player is allowed to receive any of that revenue. You know, you think about the amount of money that Duke is making off the likeness of Zion Williams.
Yeah.
He can't go out and sit in the mall, Charlton, and have an autograph session and charge people for photographs and autographs and receive any revenue from it.
Yeah.
But Duke is selling his jersey in the bookstore on campus and all around town, Charlton, in other retail stores. They're selling his jersey and making money of it. Zion gets none of that, nor does any other college athlete, Charlton, allowed to receive revenue off his likeness. This is the pimping of the college athletes that have always been there, and it's gotten on a grander scale. You think about the money that was made on this game last night from television revenue, Charlton. They moved this into max prime time, a 9 o'clock tip-off Eastern time, Charlton, for a college basketball game. NBA games don't tip off at 9 o'clock Eastern.
No, they don't.
So you think about the money movement that was made off the backs of these young black athletes last night, Charlton, and no one's crying for them in totality.
No, they're not, Big C. You think about, you said about the $10 million policy. If he sold around the country, even around the world, if he just sold 1 million shirts, and if he made just $1 a shirt, that would be $1 million. If he sold 40 million,
so where are you going to find a college basketball jersey for less than $65, $70 in any store?
I know. And
so if you sell 1 million of them, that's $70 million right there.
Yeah. So he's saying, man, we really love you, Zion. You kind of like my boy. I love you like you're my own son. You know it when it comes to the price. I think people love their sons without the price tag. Would I be wrong about that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I love my kids unconditionally, Charlton. I've never charged them a fee for anything.
Yeah.
You know, I give them hugs for free. I give them meals for free. So when you think about, no one gives any college athlete anything for free, Charlton. They say, well, you're getting a scholarship, you're getting an opportunity of free education. Think about this, Charlton. The NBA does not allow American high school players to go directly into the NBA draft.
Yeah.
But they do allow white European players, Charlton, to go directly into the NBA draft.
Yeah.
Why is that? You think about Luka Doncic, Charlton, who was drafted number 3 overall by the Hawks prior to being traded to the Dallas Mavericks. Never played a day of high school basketball, Charlton. He's been playing pro ball since he was 14 years old.
Yeah.
14 years old, he left home and moved to another country so that he could play professional basketball.
That's amazing.
But yet he was able to enter the NBA draft, Charlton, at 18 or 19 years old. Actually, 18. He turned 19 right after the draft.
Yeah.
No black American kid, Charlton, that plays basketball in this country can do that. Why is that? The reason why, Charlton, because it is a pimping ground for colleges, Charlton, to make money.
Yeah.
And I don't care what people say about, the usage of that word, because what it is, prove that it's not, that you're not exploiting these kids for your financial gain.
Yeah.
Take all the games off of television and see what happens, Charlton. I remember growing up, you didn't have college basketball damn near every night of the week on television.
Yeah.
You had it on Saturday. That's when college basketball was covered. Now it's like football. It's a 7-day-a-week game almost. Well, they take Sunday off. Let's go back 6 days a week.
Yeah.
They got college basketball on television.
Yeah.
Multi-million-dollar contracts with these universities, with these conferences. We had a show, Charlton, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where we talked about the SEC. After the football season, Charlton, each one of the universities in the SEC received a check for $43 million.
Wow.
Now, there's 16 universities in the SEC. After the revenue was doled up from the regular season and the bowl season, Charlton, they all shared $43 million apiece.
Wow.
Now, you're going to tell me that you can't pay the football players out of that something? $43 million that the universities received. This was profit after the season was over, Charlton.
Yeah, that's incredible, Big C. So I hope Zion's better off. And, I just know that most kids, if you're projected to get that kind of money, get an insurance policy, because your schools will tell you they love you. They'll smile right in your face, tell you, man.
Well, look at this, Charlton.
Yeah.
Remember during the football season when Joey Bosa got hurt at Ohio State?
Yeah.
He said he was shutting it down.
Yep.
He was leaving. He was dropping out of school.
Yeah.
And everybody said, yeah, that's okay because he's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah.
And he's got to think about his health instead of helping the team. All the cry today in the media, Charlton, well, Zion is there. He's a part of the team. That's what he signed up for.
Yeah.
You know, he's there with that group of guys. That's what he committed to Duke for. That's why he signed the scholarship. We didn't get that backlash from about Ohio State and Joey Bosa because he's white.
Yeah.
He has to look out for his future, not his teammates he had at Ohio State. They said, well, he had to have surgery. What if Zion Smith has to have Williams has to have a scope on a meniscus because of this, Charlton? Or even just total rehab.
Yeah.
Everybody is saying, well, he should come back and help Duke play for a title. Don't worry about his future. He should help Duke play for a title and keep the television ratings up. Because when he's on TV, those are the highest rated games in college basketball. Wow. So they need him for revenue, not for his health, Charlton.
Well, if Duke can guarantee him $40 million, that come back. But if not, go to the league that pays you. It makes more. Who was that guy that said, pay me now or pay me later? If you don't change the oil, you're going to get the oil filter changed and the oil changed whenever the dealership says to. If not, you'll be paying for it later. I think Zion is a smart guy getting an insurance policy. There's other people have that same thing too. Kind of some sad news, Big C. Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim, struck and fatally wounded a man. His car last night. I guess on his way home after the Syracuse game, the man had left his car from an earlier accident and was walking along the freeway. I know that's tragic, especially with not being able to see the weather the way it is. A tragic thought, and I just hope that everything's okay on that end, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it was a tragic accident with Coach Boeheim last night. He ran into a pedestrian on the side of a freeway in inclement weather up in Syracuse, New York, after a victory last night by his team, Charlton.
Yeah.
And he is cooperating with the police officers, Charlton. He took himself to the police station to report the incident, Charlton. It's a tragedy for Coach Boeheim and the man's family. A loss of life is never anything that's pleasant in this country, Charlton.
Well, I want to not to get too far in it because I still don't know what happened, but I do watch Empire, the movie Empire, and I know there's a scene or it's an incident that's happened in Chicago, and I don't want to speak too much about it because I don't know. I'll just leave it at that, but it's all over the news, and I know that oftentimes anyone can accuse you of anything. It doesn't mean that you're guilty. It's a shame that whatever's going on, but I don't want to speak on it much because I really don't know, and I don't want to be like media jumping to the conclusion that somebody, faked an incident when we know there's a lot of incidents in this history where those things have happened, people being beaten up for whatever reason. I do want to get on something with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the GM, Kevin Colbert. He and Ben Roethlisberger, he said that he's unquestionable, his leadership of the Steelers. He's the only one left from the Super Bowl winning team and has the right to call out anybody. He went on to say that Big Ben is working with 52 kids around them. Well, that's an insult to the rest of the players because I think Ben's the only one that's throwing interceptions on that team. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about those 52 kids, Charlton, and about 70% of them are minorities.
Yeah.
And so he might as well say he's working with a bunch of boys.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying in a dog whistle.
Yeah.
He's working with a bunch of boys, a bunch of black boys that should be listening to him, whatever he says.
Yeah.
He says that Ben has the only one of credibility on the staff. Now, this is a guy that over 11-month span was accused of sexual misconduct with two women, Charlton, in two different states.
Yeah.
In Lake Tahoe and in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, this is a man that you're talking about being in a leadership role. He also had a motorcycle accident several years ago, Charlton, that put the team's future in peril. So you want to talk about Brown and you want to talk about Bell, but you don't mention any of the incidents that Ben had that lacks character, Charlton, that lacks leadership quality.
Yep.
That's what you expect from a little boy to go out and do something that's improper, Charlton.
Yep.
And that's what you got from Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Here's a GM that's calling the rest of the team a bunch of young boys and stuff.
Yeah.
But if they're being led by a guy that has had the background that Ben Roethlisberger has had with the motorcycle accident, the two impropriety incident with the young women in Lake Tahoe and in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Why don't he talk about those things? So this is what we expect leadership-wise.
Yeah.
That a man can commit basically crimes and buy his way out of them, Charlton.
Yeah.
But we want him to be the only man on the team.
Yeah.
That's not what you call character and leadership, Charlton.
No, it's definitely something you can criticize. And I know there's a lot going on with different players throughout the league that you can't touch them supposedly. But I know everybody has something good and bad about them. And I just hope that that's a great organization. It'd be nice if they all came together and just had a sit down and figured out what's going on with the direction of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Tomlin's the right guy to do that. I want to jump back in the ranks of college basketball. And when I think about that game last night, Gonzaga had to be watching and saying, that's the same team we beat, Big C. And they had Zion when Gonzaga beat them. So the Gonzaga beat them by a couple of points. It wasn't a blowout like they had last night against North Carolina. But that's a team up in the great Northwest that they would have to, I guess the mothership and all the other East Coast media would hate to see them ranked number one because it's not a big media market up in Spokane, Washington. But when I look at the top 25 college basketball teams that lose last night, number 1 Duke lost to number 8 North Carolina, 88-72. You looked at number 6 Nevada, they fell to unranked San Diego State, 65-57. Number 13 LSU, they fell to unranked Florida, 82-77. And number 18 Louisville, they fell to Syracuse, 69-49. It was just a perfect night, it seemed, for teams to get upset. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you were a highly ranked team, Charlton, last night, you were in peril as all of them went down, except for North Carolina.
Yeah.
They were the only ranked team that was playing. They couldn't lose last night, Charlton, after they beat Duke.
Yeah.
But, this just shows the balance in college basketball. But, what will all the voters say now? Does Gonzaga now move into that number one position, Charlton?
They have to. Because
they had beat Duke, as you said, earlier in the season. But Duke had leapfrogged them, Charlton, later on in the season.
Yeah.
So, this is all about marketing. That's why that game had so much hype.
Yeah.
Now, you think about Gonzaga, whoever their opponents are, Charlton, and they're not playing in the ACC.
No.
But they warrant the high ranking, just like Nevada did prior to falling to San Diego State last night.
Yeah.
So this is about marketing 101. When you look at the rankings of teams, Charlton, and having Duke number one in the country.
Yep.
A $2,500 ticket, Charlton. We talked about games last night that you could get in for $3 in college basketball.
Do they get a refund, Big C? Do they get a refund?
They're going to have people say, well, you got the next one on us.
Yeah.
Because these teams, Charlton, will play again in 2 weeks in North Carolina. Will that ticket price be as high if Zion Williams is not playing?
Yeah, that's amazing because you said something that I hope that Zion – I hope his parents are strong enough to say, son, sit out. You don't have to play anymore. You're going to be the number one draft pick in the NBA, whether you go out there and hurt your knee again for Duke. Because if he hurts his knee again, Krzyzewski's not going to come in and say, you know what? We're gonna give you my salary for the shoe contract that I got so you can live a little bit easier. I mean, that's a conversation that people need to have when you think about it. Because we were just talking about all the top teams that lost. The whole hope for college basketball, at least for the coaches, is to get into March Madness because they get that bonus on top of their salary. But if they get the chance to win a national championship, it doesn't benefit the kids, other than patting themselves on the back and saying, yeah, we're number one, we can cut down the net. There's no monetary benefit in a college kid winning a national championship of anything. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's a monetary gain for the university. The coach is going to receive a bonus. You're going to get a sweatsuit and a new pair of sneakers and a ring. But over time, Charlton, what will that do for you, especially the one-and-done kids?
Nothing.
They go to college, Charlton, because they're forced to go to college when you're one and done because of the rules. The NBA had an opportunity years ago to let kids go to college or go to high school. I mean, go into the pros.
Yeah.
Then they botched that, Charlton, and said, no, we're going to eliminate kids coming right from high school into the NBA.
Yeah.
There's been some success stories, Charlton, right from high school to the NBA. Matter of fact, guys are in the Hall of Fame that have come right from high school into the NBA. But as you look at it, Charlton, it was shortening the revenue stream for colleges. So you want to be able to make money on all levels. So if we force these kids to go to college for at least 1 year, everybody remembers the Fab Five. 3 of those guys could have gone right into the NBA, but they were forced to spend a year in Michigan, Charlton.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing this all over again, Charlton, is that, I remember when Moses Malone and Daryl Dawkins came right out of high school, Charlton, into the NBA. And people saying, well, that's wrong, that they should go get an education. Okay, one and done. I'm trying to figure out, Charlton, the last time some athlete got a scholarship and got a degree all in 1 year.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen, Charlton.
Yep.
I know football, they make you wait 3 years. There's a difference in football and basketball. because the physicality and speed of the game is much different.
Yeah.
Basketball players, Charlton, they don't develop that much more after 1 year in college. If they can play in the NBA, they can play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there's a lot of guys on the bench on NBA teams look like they might not be able to play in college.
Yeah.
So, but the reason for the year of forcing kids to go to college, Charlton, is about revenue.
Yeah.
That you want to be able to make it on two levels. And the NBA owners are making it.
Yep.
So you look at coaches and universities, they're like owners themselves because they own the rights to the athlete.
Yeah. Yep. And we know that's the case. So, again, everybody go out and just check into getting an insurance policy just so you can make sure that you are okay. I think about the thing last night with Zion, and we know how many big guys can go down and tear a ligament, Big C. It can take them out of the game. In fact, it can change the way they even play the game. I think they're all wondering, what's this MRI going to look like? Not for him, but for the money trail that they don't want to miss out on. As we look on the other side of the basketball court, there were 3 top 25 games last night in women's college basketball. Number 1, Baylor, they held on to their ranking. You know, they've been so under the radar at Baylor compared to how men are showcased. Baylor are number 1 team, Duke are number 1 team, both private schools. Baylor they blew out Kansas last night. It was 80-40. And then number 3, UConn blew out Memphis 102-45. And number 20, Iowa, they went past Oklahoma 91-70. But can you imagine the real number 1 team, you know, even though they play against in the women's, they're not as strong as men, of course, but they won a blowout game, Big C, by 40 points. But the talk is Zion going to be okay, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about those great women programs, Charlton. They weren't even broadcast on national television last night.
No.
They weren't even an afterthought. When you think about teams that's been number 1 all year long, and in the top 5 all year long. Those universities that you named, Charlton,
yeah,
no one talked about them at any point during the broadcast last night, Charlton.
No.
That's a shame that the women don't get the recognition on the national scale. You thought that Title IX would have balanced that out, Charlton, from a television perspective also.
Yeah, it just shows the power of black men in sports, especially the ones that give you free labor. I mean, you really think about that. Where do you go anywhere in the country where you make the team that you work for hundreds of millions of dollars and you get nothing? And it's justifiable. I know it's an antitrust violation, but why isn't that seeking more leeway in the court system? That would be egregious. Imagine if the players got the $100 million and the school got nothing. Don't you think they'd make a big stink about it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, the school is always going to cry if they're not getting revenue.
Yeah.
You know, it really hurts them when they have to forfeit games if they have a scandal with a coach. Because not only do you have to forfeit games, Charlton, you have to give back money.
Yeah, you have to.
So, I mean, you got to understand, college sports is a business.
Yeah.
Don't think that people are in it for the athletes. They are not. They say, well, you know, look, they get to travel around the country.
Yeah.
They're not traveling for free, Charlton.
No.
They paid for that ticket, even though they didn't take the money out of their pocket.
Right.
They paid for that ticket.
Yeah.
So you think about the demand for those tickets last night and prices reaching as high as $10,000, Charlton, for a ticket for that game last night. And none of that revenue will be given back to the people because Duke lost. None of that revenue will be shared with the players on the teams, Charlton.
Yeah.
They are, even in the women's game, Charlton, they don't get any shared revenue.
Yeah.
And you think about Baylor's women, Charlton, they have a sellout every night. UConn women have a sellout every night, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you think about the input that these young people put into these universities economically,
Yeah.
the economic growth, look at the bottom line. When Krzyzewski, you know, yearly making somewhere between $7 and $10 million a year,
easily,
between his contract with the university, with the television station,
the shoe
and
company,
with Nike, Charlton.
Yeah.
It's very well paid, Charlton.
Yeah,
very well paid.
He's not.
But you know, the cry that I always get from the media listening, well, these guys are here for the love of the university.
I love you too for
No,
loving
they're not. They're not there for the love of the university. They're there because they have no choice.
Yeah.
They've been forced into university life, Charlton. They have. It is not an option for a young, highly touted basketball player whether he can go to the NBA or go to college.
Yeah.
You know, I would like the day, Charlton, that these guys all vote for Europe and go play a year over in Europe, Charlton.
What they pay you?
And get paid and then come back into the NBA draft.
Yeah.
How will the NBA look upon that as well as college basketball? Are we going to lose all these guys to Europe? Because that's what they can do. They can, or can they go to the G League? Will the NBA allow them to go into the G League since they won't allow them directly into the NBA, Charlton?
Yep.
Let them sign with the G League and be a free agent after 1 year in the G League and enter the draft.
Well, think about it, basically. College seniors, they'll play on a 3-on-3 tournament, up to $150,000 all-star teams. College seniors would compete for a prize, a 3-on-3 tournament before the NCAA championship game in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. It will include 3-on-3 basketball. Now, you think about that. That's going to happen for the first time. You could go to the Olympics and you can find a way to make you some money, but I wonder if that will disqualify players from coming back into college. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're going to have to be a college senior to qualify for that 3-on-3 tournament. So you have to have used up all your eligibility to be able to play in that.
Yeah.
The one in the Olympics, that's just going to be for a medal. So that will allow players to go into the Olympics and play there. But I like the thoughts of this, but this could open up the door also, Charlton, for college basketball players getting paid.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, you have to have used up your eligibility to be in this 3-on-3 tournament. Now, this 3-on-3 tournament is a spinoff from Ice Cube's Big Three League, Charlton, that he opened up last year.
That's right.
And had a lot of success, Charlton. But this is what players do growing up. They play 3-on-3 basketball all the time.
All the time.
In pickup games.
Yeah.
So this is something that, if it works in that, Charlton, in the tournament, could we see that as a new stage of college basketball, having 3-on-3 games?
Well, especially if they can pay you. They'll find a way to get paid. They just got to think like the coaches think. Tell them you love them and get the money. But when you think about what you just said, Big C, with the NBA trade line, it just passed. What if that was implemented at the college level for football and then basketball with programs being able to do that? I wonder if coaches will be calling each other. Again, Magic Johnson gets a fine for allegedly having some communication of what he wants to happen. It seems like everybody who gets the money, there's never any cry about why they're doing it illegally. But a multimillionaire man can say, we want to have another multimillionaire play for us. You get fined for that. But all these young college boys and girls playing, nobody's getting reprimanded for getting free money and free labor. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you look at the transfer portal that everybody is getting into now in college athletics. And in this transfer portal, everybody wants to think that this is some new grandiose thing.
Right.
College players have always transferred, Charlton. There are no more than 100 players this year transferring more than what it was last year. I think it was like 1,470 college football players who transferred last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
This year, it's about 100 more that are transferring. So they just changed the name of it to the portal, Charlton. What this does, it allows a player to put fillers out there to see if other universities that might be interested in them, where they can transfer without sitting out a year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Which I think is good for college athletics. I think it's good for the athlete.
Yeah.
That if you're in a place and you're not getting the opportunity to play, just as we saw last night on television and every game we see on television, guys go to universities to play, be productive, and to be on television.
Yeah.
If you're in a place and you're behind somebody, Charlton, and that guy's going to be around for a couple of more years, and you were told you were going to be able to compete for the starting job,
yeah.
and you couldn't beat him out for whatever reason,
yeah,
you should be allowed to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And especially if a coach leaves, Charlton, if a coach leaves a university, every player on that roster, if they choose to transfer, should be allowed to go. Because you think about how many coaches just up and left
all the time
in basketball and football last year, Charlton, for greener pastures.
Yeah.
I mean, more money elsewhere, because they didn't transfer. They didn't leave a school for a cut and pay.
Yeah.
They left for a pay raise.
Yeah.
So every time that a coach leaves, Charlton, there should be a portal that every player that chooses to transfer can transfer.
Yep.
There should not be any holdback against the players, because if a coach can leave without having to sit out a year, that a player should be able to leave at any time without having to sit out a year.
I agree wholeheartedly, Big C. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. And thinking of coaching, you think of the worst college football coaches of all times. I mean, we have the coaches in football, basketball, baseball, track and field, gymnastics. They all make good money. But when you think of the top sport out there, college football coaches, think about the worst of all time. Dan Hawkins, University of Colorado. He was hired in 2005. They fired him in 2010. He went 19 wins and 39 losses. And he still made a lot of money, though, Big C. The players got nothing again. Your thoughts?
Well, he got nothing, Charlton. They hired him out of Boise State, where he had won a couple of championships there at Boise, Charlton. They moved him over to Colorado. I guess the competition was too much for him, moving to the Pac-12, Charlton. And that Colorado program has never recovered, Charlton, since Dan Hawkins has been there.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. Mike Oxley, New Mexico State, 2009 to 2011. He went 2 wins and 26 losses. And he's now the head coach of Maryland. How do you go 2-26 in a smaller conference and you get a head coaching job at a bigger conference? The Big Ten really has 19 schools, so maybe they thought he was 26-2. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he used that time on the Alabama staff to catapult himself to a Big Ten position. But all you have to do is look back to his early days, Charlton, as a head coach, and you got to wonder whether he's the proper administrator to take to Maryland.
Yeah, well, obviously, when you beat Texas, 2 years in a row, and then you push Ohio State, that in itself, no matter how bad you do, it gets you on the radar. But one coach that's made so much money and had a lot of publicity, mainly because of his affiliation with the NFL, Charlie Weis, he went to Notre Dame and coached there. $40 million. $40 million. And for his services, his third season, he went 3-9 before the school cut ties with him. But he still got the $40 million. Now, he got that because he was on Belichick's staff, not because he had won big elsewhere or won a national championship with another program. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he fleeced Notre Dame. Matter of fact, he got his final payment last year from Notre Dame after being fired. But you think about the first 2 years that he was there, he was playing with Tyrone Willingham's players.
Yeah.
And in his third year, those was his players that produced a 3-9 record, Charlton.
Yeah. You think about that. And Tyrone Willingham, I remember when Tyrone Willingham was at Stanford, had a lot of success for the Cardinals, Big C. I think the only coach that's had more success, Tyrone went to the Rose Bowl. Of course, Harbaugh had great success with Stanford University, and David Shaw had more success than all of them, going to Rose Bowls and sending more players on to college football, from college football to the NFL than anyone that's ever, coached down there at Stanford. But when I think about Weis, why did he get the $40 million, Big C, when he had no winning pedigree coming in outside of being on the New England Patriots staff? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they were looking for a marquee name. Notre Dame had not hit it big with coaches. But you think about Charlie Weis, he never had a better winning record at any point than what Tyrone Willingham had before he got fired at Notre Dame.
No, never did. I know they had that big game against USC that they called the Reggie Bush push, but I think that was a game that would go down as one of the best football games, in the history of Notre Dame and maybe even USC as well, especially for the Trojans since they won that game. Ellis Johnson, Southern Mississippi, never won a game. Hired in 2012. He was 0-12 on his only season. The team had 18 consecutive winning seasons prior to hiring him. If you go 0-12, there's nowhere to go but up. Why not give him a second year, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I guess they figured out what they were smoking, and the smoke is cleared out of the room. And, after they realized they were 0-12, they're like, whoa, what do we do? So let's get rid of this now. We can't do any worse.
Yeah, that's funny, Big C. It's hard on the players when players can go 0-12, and then they'll bring in a new coach. They got to learn a whole new system, but I think he has their attention since they're willing to try to at least get one win. I think about another coach, Big C. And again, everybody talks about who's the best coach, who wins more games, more national championships, etc. Who will be Hall of Fame coaches? When we look at some of the coaches that have not had the success, Greg Robinson, Syracuse University, he only won 10 games in 4 years, from 2004 to 2008. That's a once proud university. The great Donovan McNabb. They've had so many other great players that have come through that university, mostly known as a basketball power. But 10 games in 4 years, if my math is right, that's 2.5 games a year, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, they've had a turn for the better since Dino Favors, Charlton, has gotten a job at Syracuse. He's turned that proud program back around. But when you think about Greg Robertson fleecing that program with 10 wins over 4 years, Charlton,
yeah.
and you question any minority coach that ever gets a job.
Yeah. I just think when you think about how hard it is to pull together a staff in college football, they bounce around like ping pong balls, but the players got to stay there. Walt Harris on the West Coast, hired by Stanford in 2006. He went 1-11. 1-11, known for his odd play calling. I guess it was odd if you're 1-11, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this was a coach who would routinely punt on third down.
Wow.
Instead of trying to pick up a first down, he would punt on third down. I guess he was dyslexic and did not realize he wasn't playing in the Canadian Football League, Charlton, that he was playing in college football.
Yeah, maybe he was auditioning for a coaching job in Canada, Big C. I think that's funny. But he also was trying to save, you know, his offensive line from being beaten up or blitzed again, Big C. You think about John Blake. He never won more than 5 games at Oklahoma, hired in 1996. He finished with a dismal 12-22 record over 3 years. If you can't win 12 games in one season at Oklahoma, you're in trouble. He was able to win 12 in more than one season, Big C. I mean, he never won more than 5 games. That's incredible. At Oklahoma, how do you even last more than a year there, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about how proud that program has been over the years, Charlton, to have coaches like Bud Wilkinson, who has the longest winning streak in college football history at 68 consecutive games, Barry Switzer. He followed Barry Switzer, Charlton, at Oklahoma. So you got to realize that a lot of disgruntledness was there in that program after Barry Switzer was dismissed. But never winning more than 5 games, Charlton, as a head coach. We've seen what has happened with the last couple of football coaches there at Oklahoma, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, with Stoops and now Lincoln Riley, Charlton, that program is back on track.
Yeah, it's back on track now. You think about Derek Dooley, University of Tennessee. He never finished more than 500. He was fired after 3 years going 15-21. It's a shame that a program that has over 100,000 seats and a winning tradition at University of Tennessee Volunteers. I love their end zones. I mean, it's everything about Tennessee's college football. But you had a coach that went, I think it was 15-21 over 3 years, and how did he last that long down there? You would think with that kind of stadium, that type of recruiting ability, you got at least winning 7 or 8 games every season, Big C, as a minimum. Your thoughts?
Well, that program has never recovered, Charlton, since Dooley was there at Tennessee. They've gone through now they're on their third coach since he has left.
Yep.
And, you know, he ran the program so far in the ground, they've had a hard time getting kids to come down there, Charlton. But, you know, they thought they were hiring a remnant of his dad, and that's all they got was a remnant.
Yeah, that's true, too, Big C. Even I want to just come back to the West Coast. Tyrone Willingham, he's had some great posts to coach, Big C. Stanford University, Notre Dame University, University of Washington. But I think that his magic, his mojo ran out up at Husky Stadium. University of Washington, 4 seasons. He finished with 11 wins, 37 losses, and the team went 0-12 in his final season. I think even that Washington Husky program is finally back now. But from the great Donnie James and all the coaches they've had since then, I think Peterson's going to do a fine job keeping them on the map. But your thoughts on the great Tyrone Willingham, Big C?
Well, you had Neuheisel and Sarkisian up there, Charlton, to get the program back. But Tyrone Willingham had lost his mojo and lost his players by the time he got to Washington, Charlton. And what he was looking to recruit, he was used to being in academic institutions.
Yeah.
And he tried to recruit that same thing up in the Pacific Northwest, Charlton, and those athletes just wouldn't perform up there.
You said they wouldn't go to class? Is that what you said? If you don't go to class, sometimes they kick you off the team and it affects your school program. Rick Ventura, Northwestern University, from 1978 to 1980. Those 3 seasons, he finished a whopping 1-31, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, You got to even wonder if he was sleeping at night and you won him 31. I mean, every day he had to wake up, am I going to get fired?
He never answered the phone.
But, this is what we talk about.
Yeah.
The longevity that white coaches will get, Charlton.
One win.
You spent 3 years.
Yeah.
And you got one win. When did he get the win? Was it in his first year or his last year?
That's what the DJ Khaled said, all we do is win, win, win no matter what. But you go 1-31, that's job security. How do you come and recruit the next wave of players when you go 1-31? I just think that's incredible, Big C. If you look at other sports, in the sports universe, the great Manny Machado, what a lucky man, $300 million over 10 years. And somebody told me, yeah, but he doesn't even bat 290. No, he batted about 272. But it's not about the batting average. I guess the image is more important than the results. We know he's a good player, but he didn't help the Dodgers win the World Series, and they were loaded. How's it going to help San Diego become respectable, and they're not loaded, Big C? $300 million for the Padres. You think about it. In 1968, the league minimum for Major League Baseball players was $28,000, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, and so when we look at today's money, Charlton, going back to 1968 where the league minimum was 28, you got guys that make more than that per game, Charlton. Matter of fact, per inning in Major League Baseball.
Crazy.
It just lets you know how the sport has grown financially over the decades. And television revenue has meant a lot to that, Charlton. But baseball has the greatest union.
Yep.
And you think about it, growing from $28,000, Charlton, 51 years ago, to where it is now is just marvelous for the players.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a life-changing. I mean, what do you got to do in this country to make $30 million in 1 year, and you can be successful, 30% of the time? Even less than that, like 28% of the time, and it's worth $30 million a year. 45 years ago today, the New York Mets made Tom Seaver the highest-paid player in baseball, paying him $172,500,000. I mean, you think about that. That's a lot of money in a real person's life. But people right now, they wouldn't even sign for that, Big C. For one, they wouldn't sign at all for that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about it, Charlton. That was the highest single season for a pitcher in Major League Baseball history. The Tom Seaver, he never won he won a World Series with the Mets in '69. As a matter of fact, he's out of your neighborhood down there, Charlton, in California.
Yeah.
He's there from the West Coast, I believe, Clovis, California, same place Darryl LaMonica came from, former quarterback with the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
And he went to Notre Dame College also, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you think about how baseball grew, in 1968, the minimum salary was matter of fact, $28,000. And in 1974, Tom Seaver received the richest single-season contract for a pitcher at that time.
Yeah, he was balling back then, Big C. You think about greatness. Pitcher Nolan Ryan became the first $1 million player per season in Major League Baseball. That was 1980. And, of course, Nolan Ryan, if anyone earned the money, he was one of the most dominant pitchers in the history of the universe in Major League Baseball. That's a lot of money for $1980 million, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it showed the growth of Major League Baseball. But all that, Charlton, was attributed to a black player that people have forgotten about over time. Curt Floyd, who was a member of the St. Louis Cardinals, 10-time All-Star, Charlton, fought for free agency in Major League Baseball, challenged the establishment, and won in court, Charlton, to allow these players' contracts to start to escalate at that level.
Yeah, yep. I mean, I think it was, what was the name? Lee Majors. He played Steve Austin in the movie The $6 Million Man. I think he had some type of an accident in an aircraft, and they put him back together again, made him bigger, stronger, and faster. He was only worth $6 million. That'd be an insult to guys nowadays. If you think about the times, Big C, Tom Seaver retired in 1986. Mike Smith, third baseman for the Phillies, was the highest paid player in baseball. He had an annual salary of $2 million a year, Big C. No one of his stature would play for $2 million now, Big C. Your thoughts?
When you think about that, he was an all-star and a Hall of Famer, playing third base for the Phillies. $2 million, at that time, Charlton, which was the highest salary in baseball. $2 million. You think about Kyler Murray. Got a signing bonus, Charlton, of $4.7 million from the A's last year, and is giving the money back.
Yeah, I mean, giving the money back. You think about this, Big C. In 1966, Willie Mays was the highest paid player in Major League Baseball. $133,000 in a season. Willie Mays might be the best player ever in baseball, especially for the San Francisco Giants, even though people might say Barry Bonds. But think about the Say Hey Kid. I mean, the Say Hey Kid is for a man that's making $133,000 in a season. Obviously, that's a lot of money back in the day. But compared to guys now that are making $30 million, man, he must want to slap those guys, Big C. That make any sense to you? He might want to give a slap of love, Big C, slap of love.
Well, Charlton, you think about some of the relief pitchers in Major League Baseball, the higher prices, Charlton. They make that per inning that they pitch, $133,000.
Wow.
A relief pitcher now, one of the top 3 relief pitchers in Major League Baseball, can go out and make that much money in one inning of pitching, Charlton.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I know there's no way to compare the past with the present, but when you think about it, everybody knows those players, oftentimes, the African-American players, they did it in Jim Crow. Okay, they were still doing it with a lot of issues facing them that other players don't have to deal with. And that made it like they were Superman, basically, because they had so much more to deal with. Think about January 1975, 2 weeks after winning an arbitration case against the Oakland A's. The Catfish Hunter, I wonder if he really ate catfish, Big C, but Catfish Hunter signed the richest deal in Major League Baseball history, a 5-year, $3.5 million contract with the New York Yankees. And Catfish Hunter could play, Big C. $3.5 million, that's a lot of money, but still, it's chump change in today's era, Big C. Your thoughts?
You say 5 years, $3.5
million. Yep.
Manny Machado got 10 years, $300 million.
Wow.
So I guess you would say it's chump change, Charlton, in reality.
Yeah.
But, you think about Catfish. He had been a World Series winning pitcher with the Oakland A's, Charlton, prior to filing for arbitration.
Yeah.
And the reason why he filed for arbitration is Charlie Finley, who was the owner of the A's at that time, Charlton, had said he would pay an annuity life insurance contract for Catfish Hunter.
Yeah. That
he had agreed to put $50,000 into his annuity, Charlton, that would pay his family for life, Charlton, at that time. If you think about $50,000, what it would have meant in an annuity back in the early 70s. He failed to pay that annuity, Charlton, $25,000 a year for 2 years. And so Catfish took an arbitration over there.
Yeah.
And he won the arbitration. That's during the day of George Steinbrenner, Charlton, starting to rebuild that Yankee dynasty.
Yeah.
And so Catfish had 23 teams after him at that time, Charlton. So Steinbrenner outbid all of them, Charlton, and made him the richest player at that time in baseball history.
By paying him what's considered today a chump change. It's amazing how time flies. I know a lot of athletes, and when you think about it, what really goes through the owner's mind when they think they have to write a check for $300 million? If you look at a layman person, to make even $30 million in your lifetime, guys are making that in 1 year, only batting .272. That's incredible, Big C. February 29, 1972, Hank Aaron signed a 3-year deal with the Atlanta Braves, paying him $200,000 per season. That made him the highest paid player in baseball. 2 years later, he broke the great Babe Ruth home run record, Big C, of all time. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, but that was a sign of the times. One of the greatest baseball players in the history of Major League Baseball. Hank is going to rank in the top 5. I don't care which category you ever look in. He's in the top 5 all time in Major League history, Charlton. And to establish the record under pressure that he was living under those days, Charlton, death threats on his life, living under Jim Crow in the South, Charlton, and chasing that hollow record of Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
But the $200,000, think about that, Charlton. The largest contract in baseball at that time, a season, $200,000 in the early, what you said, 1972, that he signed this contract. That was huge money. And think about the backlash that he got being a black man making the most money in baseball at that day, Charlton.
Yeah, I think that's so incredible. And being Black History Month, when I talk to more of my, elder black members of my family and friends and just other gentlemen, whether it's in the church, just listening to some of the stories they told on their progress toward being successful in the workforce, providing for their families, making sure their kids had everything that they need to make life better for the next generation. We talked about yesterday how Steve Harvey makes $40 million a year. With he has different programs. He has his own talk show, Family Feud, Celebrity Family Feud, Steve Harvey Show. also a comedian. And I think about some of our great leaders. It's always nice to know that they're making the money, but when you think about what they went through, that has to give you a badge of honor, and also, Big C, as a person of color, the belief that no matter what it is, everybody has up and down in life. Only people who lie when they say they never had any tough times in life. But it's how you make yourself rise to the top, and these guys did it all the time in the public's eye. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they did it in the public's eye, and you don't know the perils that they had to live with on a daily basis when they were not in the ballparks, Charlton. They had to deal within the communities. They didn't have the security regimes that professional athletes have now, Charlton, to have somebody always around protecting them.
Right.
They had to, take daily perils to and from work, Charlton, even in a grocery store.
Yeah.
They didn't have the privilege that athletes have now, Charlton, to live in gated communities, to be secured from the general public. People could drive by their houses and knew where they lived, Charlton, and to try to do harm to them or their families.
Yep.
So you think about the mental pressure that the great black athletes dealt with in the 50s, 60s, and 70s here in America, Charlton. That's something that no one could ever understand. I know we just lost the great Don Newcombe, the former Dodger pitcher, Charlton, in the Hall of Famer just last week. But when you think about what he had to deal with pitching in Major League Baseball in the 50s, Charlton, and back then, pitchers had to go to bat. So think about how many pitchers threw at him, Charlton, trying to put his life and health in peril.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, that's a shame, and they really talked about it. Big C, tonight, NBA is back. I know a lot of players had a great Hall of Fame, meeting some Hall of Famers at the NBA All-Star Game, and seeing some of the Hall of Famers just standing around, whether it's Kareem or anybody. That's just being around Jordan, some great players, and then some future Hall of Famers that were playing in the game. Of course, King James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, I think they'll get there also. But I want to get tonight's schedule, NBA. It's a light schedule for Thursday, February 21st. We have Phoenix at Cleveland, Miami at Philadelphia. You have Portland. They're playing at Brooklyn across the country. You have Boston at Milwaukee. That might be the game of the night. Sacramento's at Golden State. But the game of the evening that really matters is Houston at L.A. I know we talk about the Lakers. It would be anathema if LeBron James had the playoff start and he considered the best player in the universe not be a part of the NBA playoffs after having an 8-year run in the finals. I got to get your thoughts on what happens if they lose. If they win, of course, everybody's happy the same way they were when they beat Boston. But if they lose this game, what happens to the talk of LeBron James becoming more reality that he could just miss? It doesn't make any sense, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Lakers are 2-4 since LeBron has come back from his hiatus, Charlton, with the groin injury. They need to win 21 of the next 25 games, Charlton, to guarantee themselves a spot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it starts tonight against Houston. Everyone knows that Harden has to score for Houston. Let Harden get his 40, 45 points, Charlton.
Yeah.
You shut down the rest of the Rockets. You play tough defense on the rest of the team. James Harden will eventually get tired in the game. But if you can limit the rest of the Rockets roster, Charlton, to 50, 55 points in this game as the Lakers, you will win this game.
Yeah.
But that's what you have to do. Let Harden go get his 40, 45 points, but limit the rest of the roster, Charlton, to 50 points in this contest, and you'll come out winning if you're the Lakers.
Well, that might be the sexiest game in the Western Conference. If you look at what's happening in the Eastern Conference, Miami's at Philadelphia. Miami's not a good team, but they can push it, but they're not a good team. They're not really a threat. Philadelphia they're competing for that top 1, 2, 3 seed, Big C. But the bigger game in the Eastern Conference is Boston at Milwaukee, the number 1 seed. I think Giannis showed how dominant he is, but they have a good team. It's not just Giannis. But Boston, if Boston wants to go in there and do what they did to Philly, which is get an upset win, it'll be different. I mean, it'll be a lot bigger of a statement, I think, after both teams come off the All-Star break and they're all well-rested. Big C, give me your thoughts. Do you think the Celtics have a chance to get that win up in Milwaukee?
Well, Charlton, the way that Giannis is playing, averaging 27 points and 14 rebounds a game, I mean, he's a horse.
Yeah.
When you're looking at what a player can do on the court. I don't know if Boston has anything that can compete with him, Charlton. There's some struggles on that Boston lineup, Charlton, about playing time right now because the players that got them to the finals last year are spending more time on the bench this year.
Yeah.
Milwaukee is a team of destiny in the East, Charlton. They are an all-star lineup that just doesn't get the publicity.
Yeah.
Giannis is the ring leader there, Charlton. But they're 5 deep in their starting lineup, and they can all score in double figures every night.
Yep, they're a really good team. Really, really love watching them play. I just want to see basketball where we reach down and decide who really wants it. You know, who really wants it, unlike college, they all get paid. It's good when people get paid. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I guess the next big signing in baseball, Bryce Harper. There was some talk that came out today that he turned down multiple teams that offered him $300 million. And I'm trying to figure out what was Bryce smoking. I know they made marijuana legal in Las Vegas last year, Charlton. And did he spend a lot of time back in his home state during the offseason?
I guess he must have spent some time someplace. $300 million. No, somebody's really blowing something in his ear, or maybe he's blowing it. Big C every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them bitter boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.